നമസ്കാരം. ഇന്ന് നമ്മൾ ക്യാപിറ്റൽ ഓഫ് UAE അബുദാബിയിലാണ്. ഇന്നത്തെ Safalamee യാത്ര നമ്മളെ ഇവിടം വരെ എത്തിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നു. Today we are going to introduce a person who is well known in the education sector. What is good education? What is quality education? There are different curriculums, there are different people, there are different organizations with different ideas. But what I personally feel is education is not just to ask a child to sit in a class and go with the bookish knowledge or just to go with whatever the book is teaching. To develop your personality, you need a good education. If you are into a school, or if you are into a college, or if you're attached to an organization which is helping you to develop your personality on whole, it means it's a quality education. I'm really curious to talk to Mr. Munir Ansari, the Managing Director of Global Educational Solutions. Although his father started this education chain in 1981, but as he's also passionate about the same, so he's carrying the legacy till 2022, and many more years are there, many more miles he has to travel. So let's welcome our guest, Mr. Muneer. Hello, sir.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Doing good, extremely well. Thank you for being here.
Thank you once again, and it's a privilege to have you on our show.
It's my pleasure.
Generally, we try to focus like business entrepreneurs and the people who are into like other businesses. But education is something, in one sense, it's a business, but in other sense, it's not. What do you feel? What education sector is all about?
I would say education sector is the service industry. It's a pivotal industry when it comes to building the future. So we look at it as a passion of educating the generation so that the future generation is successful and they understand how the world should be and how their life should be taken care of. So when you talk about education from a broader perspective, it is not just what happens in the classroom, it's more than what happens outside the classroom.
Right. So as we were talking off camera, this affair of Global Educational Solutions started in 1981.
Yes.
And the father of this global education solution is somebody else. He's your father.
That's right.
So I would like to know something about him as well.
Yeah, so my father, Munir Ansari, he was an Arabic professor, and in the early 80s, he moved to Abu Dhabi. Of course, leaving his job behind as a professor back home and looking for better prospects in life. And alhamdulillah, thanks to Almighty, he set up one of the first CBSE schools in Abu Dhabi, and later the next year, 1982, moved to the city of Alain and set up the second school, which is a branch of the school that was set up in Abu Dhabi. He is a passionate educator, a philanthropist, a very active social person involving in various fields of education as well as other socio-cultural fields. So he's been my passion, I would say, because it is with his guidance that I'm here where I am right now. Yeah.
When you were like brought up here only, so you were also a student of the same school, I guess?
Yeah, fortunately, yes. So I started my life in the UAE, in the sense of UAE as a student in the kindergarten, in the same school. And I finished my schooling until high school here, completed 12 years of education in Alain City, and then later on moved on for my higher education. And I was lucky to complete my higher education, get a pretty decent job in the IT sector, because as a basically I'm an IT engineer. And then it was time for me to take up the responsibilities, and I had to step into his shoes. And that was in the year 2009 when I came back to the UAE and started taking care of the school.
being into IT sector, then suddenly coming in 2009, suddenly coming into a whole, like school, college is different, but school
Yes.
is like the basic education
That's
where you are going to mold a child.
Yes.
So how was that, like the transition? Was that interesting, or was that because you have to take the responsibility? And how come, like as you're saying, you have made several changes, like how come, what kind of changes you were like working, and how was that journey?
Being the son of a father who was a professor, a lecturer in colleges, I think it was always in our DNA and blood to be part of education. And when I came back looking after job here in the UAE and taking up the responsibility initially as the general manager of the school, I always had my father next to me to support and guide me with how education sector is, to understand the changes that used to happen in this sector those days. So with his support, and I am always I read a lot, I am adaptable, and I think, like I've told you, being in a training sector, which was my previous experience, it really helped me to adapt quickly. And bringing in innovations was very important during the early, the 2009s and 10s, so being an IT sector really helped me in bringing some innovations to the school as well, in terms of IT infrastructure, some innovative educational ideas and all. Yeah, so that's how we started off.
So the technology mind inside you molded the education sector.
I would say the technology was transformed more into the education provider sector. Yes.
So in the beginning, like being an engineer, when you step into any shoes, like any different shoes, I can say, so it's not that easy to adapt things, although you're a good adapter, you're saying. But then what kind of challenges you were facing at that time?
Initially, people management was definitely easy because it's been part of the responsibilities. What was more important is to understand students and what their requirements are. So being a student of the same city, I could easily connect what I was when I was a student, and what were the challenges we had, or what were we looking forward for in a school. And those experiences really helped me to understand what the students wanted and how we can try and mold or bring in changes so that it makes it much more comfortable for them in the classrooms.
Yeah. So you were trying to look the scenario from the student's point of view.
Yes.
That's how the things got easier for you.
That's right, yes.
So now Global Education Solutions have schools in Al-Ain, Abu Dhabi, Calicut in Kerala, and Australia.
That's right, yeah. So Global Educational Solutions, we are an education management consultancy company. So we own and operate the school, two schools in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi, one in Al-Ain, which is Global English School, and this particular school where we are right now, which is International Indian School, which is a CBSE school. And we have a British curriculum school in Calicut, which is again the name of Global English School. Additionally, we have branched out our services in terms of consultancy, staffing recruitment for schools, as well as school improvement programs in the UK, Australia, Philippines, Malaysia and Bahrain. And recently we have ventured into the early childhood education, which is very important, which I'm a person who believes in that. Early years education is very important for the early stages of the child's growth. So we have set up preschools with the name 3 branding, which is one is Little Pearls, Little Miracles and Windsor Early Years, with branches in Malaysia, Bahrain, Australia, and possibly looking at having set up in Philippines very soon.
As we can see, in every country, in each city, there are so many schools, so many education organizations. So it's become very difficult for a new parent to find out which school is really perfect for my child, or which school I should choose. So sometimes what we do, according to advertisements, we just go there, and at the later stage we regret. So to make this thing very clear, I just want to ask, how Global Education Solutions is different from other schools?
See, generally what people do is people diversify from different industries into education. Okay, so there are people who are investors, real estate investors, automobile industry experts, bankers, and ultimately when they reach a stage and they feel that education sector is much more important sector to be focused, they diversify themselves. Unlike those players, we have always been into education. Like I've started off, my father was a professor, and then he set up a school because he was passionate about education. So what at Global Education Solutions, what we do is we ensure that apart from most of the schools, we focus on quality, we focus on a good teacher-student ratio. At the same time, we have amazing infrastructural facilities for the students to have a good schooling time. But apart from that, what we focus on is more of the social emotional aspect of the child. We try and inculcate a lot of activities into the school curriculum apart from the mainstream curriculum as such. We give importance to a lot of co-curricular activities. Most of our schools have social emotional learning as part of their curriculum and well-being. So that's a little different in the way we look at education, because like I've told you, I believe I'm a person who believes that the four walls of the classroom doesn't serve the purpose of education.
Yeah. How about India? The same curriculum is followed there also?
Yes, so we have the British curriculum in Calicut, and that's one of the first British curriculum international schools in Calicut. So there's a little difference in each curriculums when we look at the expectations out of the curriculum in terms of completing their textbooks, the syllabi and the curriculum, but we try and bring in some tweaks into the way it is delivered, because that's important. The teachers get enough training and they get enough coaching to adapt to the situation as such. So yes, we try and bring that to all our schools as well as in the preschools that we operate and manage.
Is there any certain parameters like you look for when you select the teachers?
Yes, of course. We ensure that 100% of our teachers are trained teachers. That means they have their bachelor's in education with good experience as well. And then when we have our interviews, we ensure that we have a very strong recruitment team. So we definitely ensure that we look at passionate educators, and most importantly, educators, when they take up the profession of being a teacher, that is by choice and not by chance.
Yes.
So that's most important factor.
So this was all about like Global Education Solutions. We'll come back to it later. So you were born in Tirur.
Yes.
And you are the only child?
I'm the only son. I have 3 sisters, and I'm from a small village, a panchayat called Valavanur Panchayat, and a place called Kurukol. It's a small place, a very traditional agricultural focused kind of a village we are in. Yeah.
And what about the sisters? They are settled in India?
All the 3 sisters, they're all here in the UAE, married, settled with their families, and yeah, we are all here.
What about your mother?
My mother is with me, and that's the most blessed thing that I have. So she lives with me. I have 4 daughters. The first twins, they're just 9 years old. The third one is in KG1, and she's just completed 5 years, and the youngest is 1.5 years old. So why I say I'm blessed is because my daughters get to experience the grandmotherly feeling from their grandmother, because my mom lives with us. So it helps in ways of inculcating the behavior, the traditional aspects, as well as someone to look over them as well. Yes.
What about your wife?
My wife, she is definitely behind every.
What's her name?
My wife's name is Rabiha. She's a fashion design technology graduate, but I had to push her away from that course, and she's completed her MBA in educational leadership, and she is also slowly supporting me in terms of taking care of our preschool chain of preschools. So she takes care of the administration in
She's also supporting you in a good way.
Of course, like I said, every successful man has a strong lady behind, and for me, alhamdulillah, she's always been there, because I sometimes find very little time to be with my girls, and she's always been there to take care of my mom and my daughters. In
your absence, she takes care of everybody.
Yes, and that's the most important thing.
Right, yes. And in all our life, we have somebody we like say these are like idols, maybe some ministers, maybe some writers or actors, depends. But our parents, especially moms, dad also, are the one who are our idols. Like from the very beginning, we learn things from them.
Right.
Parents are the first teacher, or I can say specifically, mother is the first teacher.
Yes, no doubt.
So what values you have learned from them, or like what you would like to say about them?
See, when you talk about mothers, you get very emotional, because every child or every human being, the first the contact that we have is from our mothers. What we learn is from our mothers, and it's important that we value and give it back to them. When we look at it at a cultural point of view, when we look at it a religious point of view, every religion, every culture gives the highest value for the mothers. And I believe that that's the reason I told you I've been blessed that my mom lives with me, stays with me, and takes care of my kids. So I believe that it's very important that at one stage in life, we make them feel very comfortable. We always keep them in our prayers, and we always support them. And that is very, very important if you have to be successful as a human being, as a professional. Very important.
Very important.
Yes.
So what are the next plans of Global Educational Solutions?
Global Educational Solutions, we are in the phase of expansion. We have a few projects coming up in the Southeast Asian countries. We are focusing on developing our projects in Malaysia. We are slowly expanding our wings to the Australian continent as well. And we're also having our plans to set up early childhood education centers in the Philippines. So that's the immediate goals. And yes, UAE is always our homeland. So any possible major expansions would always be focused on especially in the UAE.
As like in technology, in the same way, education is also something like day by day there are changes, day by day there are updations. So how you keep yourself updated?
I'm a technology freak. I've told you that I started off my career and I've always been into technology. I read news. I read at least 5 leading newspapers every day. And that helps a lot. Additionally, I keep up with the pace of technology, what happens, because that's important, because end of the day, when I'm leading an educational sector, I have to know what's happening around the world. So yes, that's how it works.
So like, this is something in education. If we are not updating ourselves, then it's of no use.
Yes.
Same in the medicines.
Yes.
Like the things goes like that.
That's right.
So like now people are also trying to introduce robotics into education.
Yes.
What do you feel, if can a robot replace a teacher?
Definitely not. I would say robotics or robots are just a mechanism. End of the day, the teachers have to dictate or set this set of rules, or let's say how a robot works. It works on a coding.
Yes.
Who does the coding? So if you want to include robotics as part of education sector, the teachers will have to definitely put in their skill sets into the robot first. Yes, it helps in when you talk about artificial intelligence. If you want to search for something online, if it is something to do with technology, it helps at a snap. But then where do the information come, or where does the knowledge comes from? It comes from ultimately from a teacher who's experienced the emotional feel that the teacher has with the students. That cannot be replaced by a machine.
We hear from our elders, not all, but some of the elders says like, at our times the education was really this and that, and this time like the education is not given as it should be. So being an educator, what do you feel like the quality education is served or not?
See, education is always transformative. It always changes. So we have to be adaptable, because when the generation changes, when technology comes in, when our lifestyle changes, education has to be a part of it. That's the reason why we say future education. So we do not know what is future education. 10 years down the line or 20 years later, we do not know what kind of a world are we going to be living in. So are we skilled? Do we give the opportunity for our students to be skilled, to be ready for 10 years from now or 20 years from now? That is how we look at having education, being very dynamic in terms of adapting changes.
Because nowadays theories are not just enough.
Yes, definitely.
They should be skilled accordingly.
Yes.
So as per your opinion, like different people have different opinions if I ask them what is quality education. So being an educator, being a managing director of a leading chain of schools, education sector, what is quality education?
Quality education, in my view, is an education which would get the existing generation ready for the future in all areas, like I've told you, social, emotional well-being, tolerance, trying to understand and value each other's, collaboration in terms of bringing in people and finding solution to challenges that the world that we are facing throughout, or what the world would face in the future. And most importantly, experiential learning. You experience things, you practice things, you experiment and understand. For me, that is what education should be and focused on, and I believe that we are all trying to achieve that.
We can see, like, after the school time, students go for tuitions, students go for personality development classes, they will go for other training of co-curricular activities. Like, apart from school, they have to go for these things, they have to spend their time. But what you feel like, can we bring all these things as a cluster under one roof? Is it possible?
It is possible, and that's the reason why we say that we shouldn't push the students to be only thinking about competitions.
Yes.
Being competitive is good, but if you start pushing the child to only think about being, competitive and winning competitions, you are trying to push the child to a level where the child might break. So when you say bring everything together, that's what we call school. We had the last 2 years with online education, and now the parents really understand how important or how different the school makes when it comes to education sector. See, education is not just about reading books or understanding the concept and writing the assessments and passing the exams. When a child comes to school, there are many things he experiences or learns. He understands how to be cooperative with his friends. He knows how to make friends, how to find a solution to challenges. He's experienced a different world out of the home. Right, so when you talk about activities, all schools, most of the schools these days have amazing activities run in the school during the school days. Students who need extra care, there are teachers who provide them with extra cares. So I do not see a reason for why do you need something called after school sessions when everything can be packaged in the school. And that's why schools with good infrastructural facilities, where you have good playgrounds, activity rooms, libraries, labs, all these activities are included during the schooling times.
Now the definition of schools has changed.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's becoming really a good definition, I can say.
Yes, it should. Yes.
So, like, as an educator, also as an entrepreneur, what message you would like to convey for the young generation?
Be respectful and be aware of what's happening around you. Your parents have sacrificed and they're still doing the best possible. Especially, we are all blessed to be in this amazing part of the world, a country where the leaders are visionaries and they always look at the well-being of the residents as well as the people, whoever lives in this part of the world. So I think to the young generation, it's all about being thankful to Almighty, being thankful to their parents, appreciating the efforts that their parents put through, and trying to understand what is right and wrong and following the right always. That's very, very important.
From a very long time you are in UAE.
Yes.
One of the countries which everybody would like to stay back or get settled in. What you would like to say about this country and the leaders?
30 years of living in the UAE, I would say this is my home. I wouldn't call it as my second home. It is my home. And I think I've been fortunate, alhamdulillah, by the blessings of Almighty, to have lived in this country as a student and to have been working in this country and looking after my educational sectors wherever we are in. So we do not see leaders as visionaries as the leaders of this country. When you look at the different aspects they look at, the way they want their people to be comfortable. If you look at all the ways that decisions are made, it's all for the happiness, comfort, and for the safety of the residents in this country. And there is no differentiation between you being a national of this country or you being an expatriate of this country.
Right.
No discriminations. You stand in a queue, you go to a government sector office, you don't see two different queues for a visitor or a tourist or an expatriate. No, it's all one. So that feeling of togetherness, that feeling of inclusion, that feeling of being tolerant to different communities and different culture, different religion, I don't see me seeing that in any other part of the world. So that is what UAE is all about. And the young generation who are students of this country, there is no better place that we can have. And all thanks to the great rulers, the visionary leadership behind this country.
So being the managing director of this group, on one hand you are an educator, on other you are an entrepreneur. So is it easy for you to carry both the designations together? Because education is something related to service, but when it comes to entrepreneurship, obviously it's about profit loss, it's about business. So how you carry both the roles together? Is it easy or does it clash? How it's all about?
It is challenging, but then education sector, like I've told, is a service industry, and we do not run education as a normal industry, like a retail industry. You buy something, you put a profit onto it. No. To provide quality education, we have to have quality teachers, quality facilities, right? So how do you get quality teachers and quality facilities? You have to invest into it. So when you have a quality facility, quality investment into the sector, I believe parents are ready and they understand that the value for money at the end of the day. So when I look at the prospect of being an entrepreneur, and I would say as an educationalist, what I can promise the parents is that you always look at the value for money.
Yeah.
You buy any product, you look at the value for money. And our idea at Global Educational Solutions is to be 100% value for money in terms of what the parents and the kids are offered. And that's what we are trying to balance out.
It was great talking to you, sir, because you have told a lot about the education system, how it should be, how it was, how it should be. And this is a really, I think, a great episode for our viewers also, because they are also going to learn many things from you. And we wish you all the very best for upcoming years, as you have a lot of plans. So we would like to see you on really good heights, and we wish you all the very best and success. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you.